stories in every deck.
Adventure Cards!
Hey kids, welcome back to Adventure Cards Kids TV. It's that time of year. Halloween is nearly here. Sparky, you don't have to be scared. Halloween is all pretend. What are some things you could dress up as for Halloween? Oh, Sparky, that's a great idea. You could dress up as a ghost. How did the ghost fix a hole in his sheet? With a pumpkin patch. What did the ghost say when he fell down? I got a boo-boo. What do ghosts like to eat for breakfast? Blueberry muffins. Where do baby ghosts go when their parents are at work? Day scare centers. For Halloween, you could also dress up as a witch. Oh, right, Sparky. Don't forget your broomstick. What's evil, ugly, and bounces? A witch on a pogo stick. What do you call a witch with poison ivy? An itchy witchy. Why do witches fly on brooms? Because vacuum cleaner cords aren't long enough. What do you call a witch's garage? A broom closet. What's another costume you could wear? Oh, right, Sparky. That's a great idea. You could dress up as a skeleton. What's a skeleton's favorite musical instrument? The trombone. What do you call a foolish skeleton? A bonehead. Why didn't the skeleton skydive? He didn't have the guts. Why didn't the skeleton dance at the Halloween party? He had no body to dance with. Where would you go for a party on Halloween? Oh, Sparky says a haunted house. Who greets you at the door of a haunted house? A ghost host. How do you open the door at a haunted house? With a skeleton key. What's a room that a ghost never goes into? The living room. When is a turkey scary? When it's a goblin. What do you call a goblin with an injured leg? A hoblin goblin. Why was there no food left at the Halloween party? Because everyone was a goblin. Oh, that's terrible. There's really no such thing as ghosts or goblins, witches, or haunted houses, but it's fun to tell scary stories, and that's what we're going to do during this episode. I'm going to tell a scary story. Not too scary, just scary enough. If you get scared while I'm telling the story, either pause the video or you can fast forward through the part that you think is scary. Are you ready for my scary story? Here goes. About a week ago, my friend Doug called, and he was all excited because he'd inherited a cabin from his grandfather. Now, Doug had never been to the cabin, and he was calling to find out if I wanted to go with him to check it out. I said, of course, that sounds like fun. So Doug and his dog Danny and I all piled into the car and headed out toward the cabin. Now, it's kind of weird because the cabin doesn't have an address. It's not even really on a street. It's out in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road. And Doug had these directions that his grandfather had written on a little piece of paper. So we headed on Highway 330, and then at mile marker 47, we made a right turn. We drove about 3 miles, and then at the big old red barn, we made a left turn. And then the direction said at the big oak tree, at the fork in the road, we had to take the right fork and still keep going to get to the cabin. Well, we got kind of lost because at one point I noticed that we'd passed the barn 4 times. When we finally arrived at the cabin, it was dark. We parked and got out of the car, and it was real dark. There were no street lights or anything. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and turned on the flashlight. Doug and I headed toward the cabin, but we realized that his dog Danny was still in the car. So we headed back to the car to get Danny, but Danny didn't want to get out of the car. He was whimpering. He was going, I think he was scared, and I know why, because that cabin was kind of scary looking. It was rickety, it looked like it hadn't been painted in years, and there wasn't a light on in the place. Doug used a dog treat to get Danny out of the car, and we headed toward the cabin. As we climbed the steps to the front porch, I thought the boards were going to break. They were so old and creaky. They went as we climbed up to the porch. I shined my light on the front door. Doug pulled out a rusty old key and opened up the deadbolt. Then he pushed open the door. I stepped inside, and there were all these cobwebs, and they got on my face and my arms, and I was trying to pull them off. This place was dirty and dusty. I don't think anyone had been there for years. Well, Doug stepped inside behind me and shut the front door, and it was then that I heard a noise. And I said, Doug, did you hear that? And the noise sort of went, and Doug said, is that a ghost? And I said, no, Doug, it's not a ghost. I'm sure it's just wind blowing through a window or something. And then we heard it again, and it went, and Doug said, all right, that's definitely a ghost. Let's get out of here. And I said, Doug, we just got here. So I reached over and flipped on the light switch, but there were no lights. I guess that they didn't have any power, or there was no electricity, or they hadn't paid the electric bill. I was thankful that my phone had a flashlight. I used it to illuminate the cabin. There was a living room on one side and a little kitchen on the other side. Doug and I started to explore the downstairs, and then all of a sudden, you'll never guess what happened. My phone battery died, and it was completely dark again. And Doug had forgotten his phone at home, so we didn't have another flashlight. And then we heard the noise again. And Doug panicked. He ran for the door, and I yelled, Doug, it's not a ghost, it's not a ghost. And I was trying to convince myself just as much as I was trying to convince Doug that it wasn't a ghost. And we heard the noise again. It was coming from upstairs. And I said, Doug, let's go upstairs, and I'll prove to you that it's not a ghost. We climbed the stairs slowly, creaking. And Doug's dog, Danny, stayed downstairs. He was whimpering. He didn't want to be inside the house. Doug and I got to the top of the stairs, and we opened a door to a bedroom. And we looked in, and there was an open window. And the wind was blowing through the window, and it sounded just like this. And that was it. It wasn't a ghost. It was wind blowing in a window. And I told Doug, see, there's no ghost in this house. And then we heard another noise. It was a scratching noise. It went, and Doug said, oh my gosh, that's definitely a ghost. And I said, Doug, it's not a ghost. There's got to be another explanation. And we listened. The noise was coming from the closet. I walked over to the closet. I opened up the closet door. And out jumped a raccoon. The raccoon had been living in the closet. It jumped on my shoulder, it jumped past, and leapt out the window. Oh, Doug and I were so startled that we just about ran into each other. But it was just a raccoon who'd been living in the closet for, well, who knows how long. Oh, Doug and I managed to make our way back downstairs. We found some candles in the kitchen and some matches. We lit the candles, and then we fixed dinner and had a really nice evening in the cabin. Were you scared by my story? Did you think there was really a ghost in the cabin? And did you think there was a monster in the closet that was gonna jump out and get Doug and me? I think I scared Sparky when the raccoon jumped out of the closet and then leapt out the window, don't you? Do you know what time it is now? Sparky, no, it's not time for me to tell another spooky story. It's time for you to tell a spooky story. I want you to tell a spooky story to your mom or dad, brother or sister, grandparent, aunt, uncle, or friend. When you're telling the story, remember to use as many sounds, details, and motion as you can to bring the story to life. Also, you have to make the level of scariness appropriate for who you're telling the story to. If you're telling a story to your mom or dad, you can make it really scary. But if you're telling a story to your younger brother or sister, then you have to make it a little less scary, right? Do you think the story I told in today's episode was the scariest story I could ever tell? Well, of course not. I didn't want to scare you so bad you wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. Just like hot sauce, there are various levels of scary. We start off with mild, and then there's medium, and hot, and spicy, and the spiciest of all, the scariest of all stories, is the ghost pepper. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the red button below. And remember to ring the bell so you'll be notified next time Sparky and I post a video. That's it for this episode of Adventure Cards Kids TV. Happy Halloween.
A zillion stories in every deck.